The problem is not that India has a threat from US in terms of being deluged by exports from US into India. That is not the threat. The way our tariff systems has been organized is to ensure that there is no undue exports or prices that are put in which are destructive to the local industry. And there is no threat really from the US industry in most sectors. Why is the reason that we are not reducing the tariffs is because of the WTO commitments that we can't reduce tariffs on a bilateral basis. We have to then extend those same tariffs to everyone else, which is really what we're trying to work towards, that we should be able to have an agreement with US which is not applicable to, let's say, China. We cannot have zero tariffs on automobiles coming in because then the predatory prices of China kicks in, and that's destructive, as we know how the rest of the world has responded to the Chinese tariffs. So if you reduce the tariffs on automobiles then from US, then the same thing is applicable for automobiles from China, and that'll be destructive for our sector. And therefore, the Indian government is more than happy to have a bilateral agreement which then conforms to WTO, which means that there should be a roadmap or a pathway to saying that that's a free trade agreement, and we need to then inform the WTO that is what is happening, and therefore India need not extend those rates to everyone else. Having said that, there are still issues that India needs to really carve out, in the sense that if you look at any other agreement, there are carve-outs to that agreement. And in case there is a security concern, in case there is a supply chain resilience issue, or in case, let's say, a company is opened up in US by somebody from our land borders, and they are selling something critical to India, we should have the ability to stop that. So it is very important that as we move forward, we have these carve-outs, because these agreements are now a 100-year agreement. So we need to be sure that what are we getting into, and in the haste, we should not be signing off something which really harms us. But fundamentally, India is not against reducing the tariffs from US. What needs to be done is that it needs to be crafted in a very careful manner.
All right, needs to be. You're absolutely right. And Mr. Bhattacharya, let us also not forget that there is this angle of China also that the Americans have always kept in mind while preferring India. Do you think under Donald Trump that is likely to aid India, for the lack of a better word?
No, absolutely. I think, as the previous panelists mentioned, that this arrangement kinds of brings India back into a bus that it should not be missing at all. It positions India where China was in around 2000, and be able to leverage the US market for growth, and it's mutually beneficial for US and India. And clearly, from what has happened from a geopolitical perspective, the leaks that we have heard, where we have talked about, or we have heard about war plans with China being discussed with Elon Musk, which clearly shows that US does believe that its most potent adversary is China. And clearly, therefore, it would like to move away its supply chains from China. Why would it keep its supply chain linked to China, which is a potent adversary? And if you look at any other country in the world, like the examples that were given with Indonesia, Vietnam, and so on, they're minuscule compared to the capability that India brings to the table, with the 1.5 billion people who are largely in a working population. But I think what we really need to focus on moving forward, because there isn't really a quarrel between US and India. We are agreeing to everything, and so does US look forward to. I think there is enormous amount of convergence, but what we really need to look at is issues such as agriculture, which is something that India would like to protect, and so would US. US would like to push out its agricultural products, which are getting tariffed out from other markets, to be coming into India. India would like to protect its own farmers and agriculture sector. I think those are the sticky points that we need to look at. The other big one is services. India would like to continue to have services through mobility of people, passporting, and therefore that's another area that India needs to look at when we are negotiating these agreements. But once negotiated, there will be so many cases where we will have 0-0 reciprocal tariff, that this is going to be an economic behemoth that will be created between US and India. And US is still a technologically advanced nation. Most of the imports that we have from US, we need them. The rocketry components, the Starlink kind of solutions, and so on and so forth. we anyways need them, so we don't want to tariff them. And the things that US would need from us, they would anyways need from us, because they cannot use their own labor, which is extremely expensive. They would need low-cost labor, which we have a lot of from an Indian perspective, at least for the next 10, 15 years. And so it's really a marriage made in heaven. I think the devil would now lie in the details, how we navigate through the challenges that will come up as this negotiation moves forward.
Fair enough. There is obviously a change in paradigms when you talk about the Americans and the Russians as well. How does India fit into that? It's a very interesting, tri-party association that has never been seen in the past.
As we all know, the geopolitics is shifting faster than we can ever imagine. I don't know, it's a three-way move, or is China also a part of it? Because there has been overtures from President Trump of US to China also. There has been talks about having a Trump Tower in Beijing and Moscow. So it's really complex. But if you go back for 15 years and see in which direction US is orienting itself, it came out of Afghanistan because the point was that we should focus our resources on one adversary, and the unsaid adversary was China. and that process was started by Trump, continued by Biden, and again is getting continued by Trump. So that's the deep nature of US's thought process. Now, clearly, under the Trump administration, US is aligning with the Putin administration in Russia. And India and Russia have been, if I can use the word, iron brothers, and that's being spoken in terms of Pakistan and China, but let me borrow that word. Russia and India has been iron brothers for a long, long time. So there seems to be a synergy coming up. There is also the change that is brought in by climate change, which is essentially the North Sea getting melted, and therefore shipping lines being able to ship things from Russia to US very, very quickly, rather than going down the Taiwan Strait, through the Malacca Strait, from Africa, from India into the Suez Canal and into Mediterranean. So they've short-circuited all of that with the warming and thawing of the Arctic Ocean, with the Arctic Sea. And so that's going to lead to reorientation of the big powers. And the big powers here we're talking about is Russia, US, and now India. So they're very, very interesting times that we are seeing. And I think realpolitik has taken the front seat right now. And, the issues around human rights and rule of law and so on has gone in the back end right now. It's pure realpolitik,
right.
What for me kind of politics. So it'll be very, very interesting to see how things.
All right, Dr. Bhattacharya, we've run out of time. Appreciate everybody who joined us on this conversation. Thank you so much. All right, moving on. The unforgettable saga of Sierra Leone is the story of a UN mission